Good morning, guys. What color do I want? I think I'm gonna go with black. If you are new here, my name is Christine, and I am a watercolor mixed media artist, and I like to create and illustrate fun, loose florals, and just whatever I love and am inspired to paint. I'm definitely gonna grab this color. Hey guys, I'm going live right now. I need you out of this space. Hello, I need you out of this space. I'm going live right now, okay? Hi everybody, sorry. Okay, so we're gonna do a New Year's Eve kitty cat. Something like this, but probably a different color. Because I can't ever paint the same thing twice. Not exactly anyways. All right. I'm going to show you all of the art supplies that I'm using today. I am using Art Pop watercolor pencils. I am using Funto sketchbooks. So this is a Funto sketchbook here. This is a small one. I think it's like 3.5 by 3.5. And then I also have this one. I'm going to use the bigger one today to do my illustration with you guys. I am using this is a Famui round. This is not a Famui round. This is a Famui cat's tongue brush. So we're going to be using this today. The round label is because this is a double-sided brush. Isn't that crazy? Okay. And then I'm going to be using these paints. These are Kuretake paints. They're very similar to gouache in that they're much creamier than the average watercolor, but they're still more watercolory than gouache. It's like a nice step into painting with gouache. If you're not comfortable starting, this is a good one to go to. These paints are wonderful. They're created in Japan, and if you live on the Eastern Hemisphere, you can actually access these paints in single palettes, which is really cool. Okay. Don't mind me, I am occasionally going to sip some coffee. All right, so the paper I'm using today is cold press sketchbook paper. And cold press paper generally soaks in paint better than hot press. Hot press is super smooth. It works very well for very detailed illustrations, especially if you're working with inks. But I don't work with inks that much, and I like texture. These aren't super textured. These are actually more. These ones are a little bit. But I'm actually going to sketch first because I think for a lot of people it's easier to see a sketch for something like this than to just go in with the loose paint. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any. I'm here for it. Okay. So I'm going to start with black because I'm going to try and do a tuxedo cat. And I'm going to keep the same shape. I might change the headgear a little bit, but I'm going to keep the same loaf body and head shape for this cat, just with different coloring. Okay. So I'm actually going to start with, I think, the nose. So we're just going to do, actually, I'm going to do the cheeks first. So we're going to go ahead and work on those cheeks just a little bit. And this is watercolor pencil. So if I mess up, I can always go back in and play with the water and move it around. And I go in pretty light, and you can't really erase as much as you might want to, but that's generally not a problem for me because I can just blend it out. I'm gonna make sure that we've got kind of our little nose section here. And then over here, I'm going to start mapping out those eyeballs. So we're going to come over this way and this way. And then I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. I'm going to go in here and start to kind of create the shape of the eye. Right now it looks like it's got pug features. I'm hoping I can kind of fix that as I go. You're going to find, if with my style, a lot of it is kind of fixing things along the way. I have a habit of really just kind of going with the flow and hoping for the best and then seeing where it ends up. Okay, so now what we're going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and just do the round parts of the face. We're going to go in like this and like this. And then I'm going to create, this is going to kind of, well, let's tuck this in a little bit more like this. And I'm not going to worry too much about this because I'm going to build out that loaf shape for this little kitten like that. So anything that looks scritchy, scratchy, totally fine. And then over here, we're going to build the back end just a little bit here. And then if I do a headgear piece like this one, it doesn't really matter about the ears. I can kind of leave the ears alone. So I'm just gonna go in like that. And then over here, I'm gonna build in just some like leg shapes where they're kind of folded. So not entirely loaf, but loaf enough. Because we know a loaf is where you can't even see the paws, but we're gonna work under the belief system that you can kind of see the paws just a little bit. Kind of like that. So a little bit of a scritchy, scratchy going in with the flow here. All right, like that. And then because I'm doing a tuxedo style cat, it's gonna be mostly black. I'm thinking of using more golds to do the decorations on this one. So just kind of bear with me on that. Hopefully that goes the way I would like that to. You know how that goes. Sometimes you're kind of in the midst of making something and then you're like, oh, I think I'm going to do this instead. That happens to me a lot. I make a lot of like in the moment decisions. I don't plan a lot when I'm painting. So, all right. So what I'm actually doing right now is I am going onto Pinterest and I'm looking up some tuxedo cats. I want to make sure I'm using kind of the right vibe for the cat. So I'm probably going to do that white chest with the white nose, just to keep it simple enough. There are these ones too that have like just the white chin. Those ones are super cute. And then the white chest and some white paws. So maybe we'll do that. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Some of it's going to depend on how the watercolor moves and flows. That often plays a part. I might even consider making it, this one looks pretty chill actually. I think I'm going to do definitely some white paws. And then in here, where it's kind of tucked, you may or may not see the white paw. Okay, so white paw here, white paw here. And then for the face, I think we're going to keep the face. I'm going to pull this up a little bit more. I kind of want the face to pull in a little bit more here. It's a little too low. And I'll work with those scritchy, scratchy parts to cover them up in a little bit. Okay, so as far as the white goes, we're going to definitely do a little bit of white coming in this way. And then a little bit of white coming in up here. And then as far as the face goes, we'll do a little bit of white up into this area. And maybe we'll keep the whole mouth, nose, and face white. I know, the sketch looks super weird right now, but that's okay. We're gonna make this work, I promise. Okay, and then the other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in right now and start putting in the black paint. Bye. For this kitty cat. And then I'm gonna go in pretty light though. White or black paint is never as black as you think it's gonna be. So again, this is my Kuretake palette. And I'm a super lazy painter, so I just go in cold. And because this is watercolor paint or watercolor pencil, it's gonna blend right into the rest of it. So just like this. And I'm gonna pull this in to give it kind of a scruffy little vibe for this kitty cat. And we will definitely add in some shadow in some of these areas, actually. Yeah. Like that. I'm just gonna move this paint around. You don't need to keep dipping your brush into the paint. You can just keep moving it around. The only thing you need right away is water. So once you put your paint down, depending on the type of brush you have, you can just keep pulling that paint around with water and let that kind of layer up And if it gets too dry, just add some more. But don't worry about adding tons of paint. Worry about making sure the paint is moving around on the page. Just like that. Okay, and then we're gonna keep going. We're gonna go back over to this side. I want this to be a little bit darker on the behind because that's kind of the shadow part. I'm also using the wet on wet technique to add in more pigment, just a little bit more right now, especially to those shadowy areas. Like right up in here, where I know there's going to be more shadow on this little guy. What I might do is I might just fill this whole thing in here and let only that paw be the one that you can see that's white. You don't need to repaint everything. You can if you want. I'm gonna move this paint around over here. Kind of like this. So really the first part of this session is just kind of watching me do the kitty first and then building up some of that detail for the New Year's Eve design. Because remember, this is where we started. This was the inspiration for today. So the difference between wet on wet and wet on dry is if you've already got water pre-placed on the page, and if you do, then, and you add water to that, you are doing a wet on wet, or pigment to that, you're doing a wet on wet practice. If you don't have water, if you are going in like right here, there's no water on this page, except for where I've already painted, it's just wet on dry. But wet on wet can happen pretty quickly. So the minute you put paint down and you add more paint or water on top of that paint, it is now wet on wet. And just so you guys know, I am at home. I always paint at home. And see, I got that eyeball a little bit more covered than I meant to. I'm at home and I have 5 children running around the house. So if I occasionally get a little bit distracted, that's why. I also have dogs and cats and all the things that make life a little bit more hectic. So if you're vibing, if you like what you're seeing, expect this is generally how my lives work. I'm going in for the pupil right now. I will be adding a bit more detail to that as well. Okay, and then I'm just gonna come up here and fill in some of this space. I'm gonna add a little bit more water so it's not so dark. And it gives me a bit more transparency. I'm gonna move that around. Okay. And then I'm gonna go back into the body and build up some of those areas. What I am thinking of doing is still doing that hat again, that Happy New Year hat. But I'm gonna go back into these areas and build up some more texture with the color. So I'm imagining most of this cat has lighter bits on the top of his body and darker bits on the bottom. So I'm gonna kind of go in with that in mind, though I can lift from time to time. If I feel like I put something down too heavy, I can lift. Okay, so we've got kind of that working for us. I'm gonna spread this out here a little bit so it's not so painterly. So I'm gonna go in with a wet, clean brush and just lift a little bit off the page. I'm gonna do the same thing over here and just kind of blend it out a little bit more. And a little bit more here and here. Just like that. Okay. So the reason I have not put the ears on yet is I'm debating about whether or not to give this little kitty the Happy New Year hat where you can barely see the ears, or if I'm going to give him something else. I think I'm going to give him the ears, but maybe with a little, I was thinking of doing a little like rocket looking hat. So let's do that. I'm going to go in with Let's go in with this light blue. This is called Ultramarine Pale. And I'm just gonna do one of those little triangle hats. And then we'll paint the ears around the hat. You've seen those where the cats have like the teeny tiniest little party hats on? They're so cute. We will be adding some sparkle to this little guy. And then what I'm also gonna do right now is it's not super dry, but I'm gonna pick up some white off my palette. And I'm gonna go into this nose area and start blending a little bit in here. Remember, this is all watercolor pencil in here. And with the black surrounding it, it is gonna pick it up a little bit. It will give it a little bit of texture, which I am completely okay with. And I will fill in that nose probably with pink, but I'm just gonna blend it around right now so it doesn't look so stark white. I do want it to look a little bit different from the page, and also this watercolor pencil can pick up off, and I can blend that around. I'm also going to go in over the top when I'm finished with watercolor pencil and pen. So just want you to have a heads up on that too. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm just gonna blend this out a little bit where the nose is. So I'm just gonna rub it with my brush, spread that out. Remember, watercolor dries pretty light. So if it gets a little bit too dark and you're like, oh no, it's okay. It should not dry super heavy. Usually it lightens up pretty easily. Okay. And see, I pulled some of that paint there as well, but that's okay. The other thing that I do, if you happen to like really drag that paint into your white sections, you can also use something called bleed proof white, which I use pretty regularly. It is a watercolor that is super intense, but in only the best ways. I actually use it over the top of my paintings when I feel like I've lost some of the light to a piece. Okay, so I might have to pull out my heat gun. Before I do, I'm gonna grab, I'm gonna grab a little bit of this Rose Madder, very light. This is a little bit wet, but I'm just gonna throw it in here a little bit and put that in. Yeah, these are Fumui brushes. They're a travel set. So this is actually, I just dripped on here a little bit. This is actually a double-sided brush. Fumui is probably the most experimental in brush shapes and sizes. This is actually a two-sided for travel purposes. So this one side here is the cat's tongue brush, speaking of cats, and this side is the round 6 size brush. So I can kind of flip back and forth between the two if I want, and it comes in this nice little carrier here. So if you're interested, my Benable account has most of the supplies that I use, but you can reach out to me via DMs and I can answer any questions that you have that way too. Okay, and you can see that pink kind of spread out over the face a little bit. So I'm just gonna lift and move that around a little bit more. The key here is not too much water. You want it to be just a little damp, but you don't want there to be too much. Okay, so the other thing I use is a heat gun. So this is a heat gun right here. I'm gonna use this to kind of dry this kitty and then decide what I'm gonna do next. I often use this heat gun time as drying is thinking time for what I'm going to do next or what I'm gonna work on next. Good question, Karen. And for anyone who's here, thank you so much for hanging out. I've never gone live on Facebook before. I go live on TikTok often, and I'll be going on again today. But Facebook, this is the first time, and so many of you have been so kind to come and like and follow my posts, and I appreciate you, and I wanted to kind of gift you the time, you know? So I'm super happy to have you here. Okay, let's do the ears. So I think we're gonna do ears. We're just gonna have, I'm gonna go back to my reference here, just for the kitty cats. So again, I'm just going into Pinterest and looking up. So when I look at these cats, I just want to see the shape of the ears. The other thing I can do too, tuxedo cat in a party hat. And then it'll give me shapes of ears. Now, what I want to specify here is I'm not copying. I am using this as inspiration. So like, I really kind of like this one here. I don't know if you guys can see the one up top. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit, see if I can zoom it. This one right here is kind of cute where that hat is going. But you can kind of see the hat is sitting behind on that one. There's one that's just, I think I might do this one, where the ears are kind of off to the side and curled out a little bit. Okay, so let's see if I can pull that off. We're going to have the ears come out. I'm going to do the top closest to the hat first. Kind of like that. And like that. Okay, give him his little wings. And then we'll pull this down. Like that. Pull down, and then a little curve at the bottom. And then as far as pulling this in, like how much pink do I actually want there to be? Let me look at this kitty cat again. It looks like most of the black is sitting here. Like the heavier part of the ear is here. And then leaving that open a little bit. And so I'm going to wash off my brush. I'm going to try and lift some of this bottom part out a little bit more. It's going to be a little harder to do with black, but I'm going to scrub that out a little bit. Lighten it up. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm actually going to make this a little bit wider, I think, over here on this side. This is what I like so much about watercolor. It's not as immobile as I think people think it is. I think it's far more forgiving if you work quickly. You know what, Christy? It's because I haven't been painting for a long time. I've only been painting since 2020. And for me, the things that I teach are things I was never the master of. So I'm a 6th grade math teacher during the school year. And being such means that I have to teach 6th graders how to do math. And I was an elementary certified teacher. Now, what that means is, for those of you who don't know, you can teach anything, any subject area that's a core subject area. So math, science, social studies, reading, I think I got them all, writing, all that kind of stuff. And in being that kind of teacher, you have to be a master of everything, but also the master of nothing, right? Because you never really spent all of your time in one area, and math was not my area. And when you get a job in a middle school, even though you're certified L-Ed, you have to learn how to teach whatever they give you, especially because you're just going to be one subject area. And so I ended up getting math, and I honestly went in like, oh no, I've never taught, I can't even tell you how to know whether, at the time, I couldn't even tell you, I did not know how to divide fractions. And that's part of my curriculum. So I had to learn. And in doing so, I feel like it made me more accessible as a teacher because I know the frustration points. And even with the art, like since I've fallen into love with this medium, I've learned the frustration points. So I like to think one of the things I try very hard to do is to make art accessible to anyone who wants to try, anyone who's willing to be courageous and be kind to themselves. You can achieve lots of things. It's not about talent so much as it is about passion and interest and the willingness to make it work, even when it's frustrating and hard, which it is sometimes really frustrating. And there's lots of mistakes that are made, but mistakes are opportunities to grow, and also they're opportunities to enjoy your successes far more, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to darken up some of these lighter areas. I think you guys can kind of see this little kitty's coming together. Do you see the bloom right here? Right here. This is because the hat was wet and the kitty cat black fur part that I started adding was also wet. So it spread together. I didn't want it to do that, but I actually don't mind it right now. We'll decide later if I'm going to keep it or if I'm just going to paint over it. I have not entirely decided that yet. So stay tuned on that one. I'm going to come into this nose and I'm going to make this a little bit shorter. I want to make these cutie little cheeks not so wide. We're also going to color in those eyes with probably some sort of yellowish greenish color as well. Just so you know. And I'm just going to blend some of this out. I don't mind painterly, streaky paints as long as it feels like I've got some control. And if it does get a little out of hand, that's okay too, because I will come back in either with more watercolor or other tools to kind of make it look a little bit better. Now, I'm not super happy with this area right now. I don't know if it's because I pulled that up a little bit too far. I may have. So I'm just going in with my clean brush and lifting that out so it does not look as pushed into the cheeks as it was. And then I'll sharpen up some of those areas in a little bit. I taught for 36 years, just retired in May, did 6th grade for 11 years, including math, mostly social studies, then 25 years as a bilingual kindergarten teacher, taught in Spanish, just started painting a couple of years ago, still learning, and never had an art class. So, Christy, I have never taken a professional art class. I think the last time I took any sort of formal art class was when I was in 7th grade. And I loved that class, but as I'm sure you know, when you are in the U.S. educational system, you pick a elective and you run with that. You don't really have the option, like there's no time in your schedule to do multiple electives. And at the time I picked music. And so I did a lot of vocal and theater when I was in high school, and I never had time to do art. Even though I liked it, I never had time to do it. And so I just kind of gave up on the like and just figured I was going to be a bystander when it came to liking art, if that makes sense. But I appreciate all the years you put into teaching. I'm in my, so I officially started teaching as a sub in 2001. And then I got my official teaching position in 2004. So we're talking a little more than 20 years as a permanent teacher, about 23 as a teacher in general. I graduated from college in 2001. And I've been teaching math for a long time, but I have taught social studies. I've taught writing. I've taught science. Science was my least favorite, not because I don't value science. I certainly do. But I always had a hard time with all the vocabulary and remembering all of that. So one of the things I want you to notice is that the hat is significantly lighter here, and that is intentional. I want there to be some light on this hat, even as I go in with some details. All right, I'm going to let this kitty sit for a minute, and I'm just going to start doing some fun little decor around the kitty. Actually, no, I'm not. I say things, and then I lie to you, and I don't mean to lie. But all of a sudden, I remembered I want to do something else. I want to go in here and make this a little bit darker. That's what I want to do. I want to darken up the bottom just a little bit more. Okay, that feels a little bit better. I just want you to see like where the leg is tucking in a little bit. So you can kind of see the arm is tucking in there a little bit. Okay. What do I want to do next? Okay, I was talking about doing that. I was thinking about doing a wine bottle, but I was also thinking about doing a martini. So let me think about the martini for a second. All right, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to give him a little sparkle. Well, not sparkle, a little bit of puff coming off of that hat. That was way too thick. I'm using indigo, by the way. But I can go over that in various stripes with my brush. And it'll just end up being a little bit of a background. So he's got his little bitty hat. I'm also going to be using sparkle pens. They're like glitter pens that I love. You guys will enjoy them. Those are really fun as well. Do I really want to go in with paint on the eyes? I still might. Let's do this. I'm going to go in with the regular ultramarine and add that in here too. Just add a few more strokes, little fluffy brush strokes. And then I'm going to come into this hat and we're going to create some stripes. And where the stripes look messy, I'm going to clean them up later. This guy does not look super unhappy to be celebrating New Year's tonight, by the way. Does anyone have any fun New Year's plans? My fun New Year's plans are I'm having preteens over for a sleepover, and I'm going to hide away in my bedroom and crochet and watch the season finale episodes of Stranger Things. That's my plan. And hopefully be asleep before midnight. I like to say I'm in my loaf era. I'm all about chilling and not going out. Plus, my husband and I just got back. We went on a family vacation to the Bahamas, which was super fun. But when we got back, because I'm from Buffalo, the weather was so bad. They canceled all the flights from Orlando to Buffalo. And I'm like, dude, we got to get home. So we drove it. We hoofed it. 19 hours. 19 hours. Which one? The blues here. This is Kuretake. So this is a, 3 times 6, 24 pack of Kuretake. You can get these on Amazon. If you click my Benable link, you can go ahead and check that out. That just gives me the tiniest commission, but you don't have to. It doesn't really matter. These are great. There's lots of different options. There's this one. I'll show you some other ones that I have that are lovely. There's also this one, which is more of a floral palette, more muted tones, which is really nice. I have a couple of sets that I really enjoy using. Oh, I just want to make sure I'm reading all the comments. Okay. Wow, you're an amazing artist. Never knew I could do art because I took all the classes to be on track for college. Yep, same. Not really any elective. Spanish was my elective. So thankful for subs. Glad you went on to get your teaching certificate. I'm sure you are very thankful for your pension. Oh, that's so kind, Karen. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Okay. Sounds wonderful. Okay. Let's see. What do I want to do next? I was talking about that martini, wasn't I? Let's see. I'm thinking about, have I made a martini glass? It's not too terribly hard to do. Let's do this first. I'm going to come back in to the face and I'm going to add the teeniest of tiniest little bits of black. I don't want to go crazy here, and I'm super lazy when it comes to mixing, but I'm going to go under the mouth and under the chin with a little bit of gray. Now, I just did that on my brush because I've been doing this long enough. I know how to control the paint, but feel free to use a palette for that part. And then for the rest of it, I'm just going to pick up this paint from where I put it and move it around. Like I want it under the nose, right in here. Needs to be a little bit blacker again. Like right under here. And then probably under the hat. And definitely under where the mouth is. And under here, like on the lower parts of the cheeks. Like that. Okay. It's just darkening it a little. And then I'm going to lift out areas that I feel like I lost some of my light with. Just a little bit. You're welcome, Julie. Is there anybody that you guys follow here on TikTok that are good live artists? I remember years ago, I haven't followed her in ages. And I mean, I haven't gone to one of her lives in ages. But when I first started learning, Andrea Garvey had the most amazing lives on Facebook. Like I was so enamored with her lives because I'm a watercolor floral artist first. It's kind of where I started my journey. And she has the most beautiful watercolor florals. And I started learning acrylics with her, and she's just a lovely, amazing person. So it's funny coming on here and living with you guys, knowing that that's kind of where I started. You know, it's weird to like think about where I've been, I guess, that way. Okay, I'm going to go in now. I'm just going to stop yammering about random things. And I'm going to leave the kitty alone. And I'm going to make some party little decor. I was going to do a martini glass. I just don't think I'm ready for that. Let's do a little toot toot. It's not the professional way to say it, but what are they? A horn. God, perimenopause blows. It is not the best. The silliest things I can't remember. Like literally, I was talking to somebody about my favorite Daniel Smith paint, and I couldn't name it. And I paint with it all the time. I'm like, what is this trash? Like, I'm not a fan of all of this. Okay, and then I'm going to come back in here, and we're just going to put the little horn mouthpiece part. What is that? God, that doesn't even look like that, does it? Let's pick some of that up. Like that. And then I'm going to try and go back in and grab that white. Just like that. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Zoom that in. We'll do some, let's do the wine bottle. I think the wine bottle is just going to be easier for me. We'll do it over here. Put it in the background. And it doesn't really matter where you put it because we're being more whimsical here. Like we're more about whimsy, or at least I am. So it's just about evening out where everything goes and less about proportion. When you're at the stage where you are ready to learn proportion, do not come to me. I am not there yet. I have some idea of proportion, but I'm definitely a copy artist. Not, that sounds so terrible. I mean, like, I like to look at an image that like a photo and just mimic it as best as I can. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. I definitely want to get better about being more cognizant of proportions, but I'm just not there yet. And admittedly, that's one of my weaknesses because I don't have a formal background. I do know some color theory, but not a ton. The color theory that I do know is based on experience and a couple of online classes with Tamara Laporte. Game night at my sister's. My daughter plans to watch the Stranger Things finale too. I ordered the muted color set from Kuretake. Should be here today. I think I actually ordered them after looking at one of your postcard paintings. It had leaves and blooms. Sounds about right, Christy. Sounds about right. Yes, Karen, it is. It is not my faves. Okay, that's not too bad. Let's give it a little cork. Corks are fun and little easy. Little squares off the top. I do love this brush set because it's got the, well, not the brush set, just this brush in general. I love the tip and I love the wide base to it. It just gives it a lot more versatility, I guess. I think I'm going to use the same color for the eyes. I'm just afraid to go in the eyes with a brush because I'm afraid of messing everything up. So I just might use pencil for that. All right, let's go back into here. I think I might just do pen stuff with that. Let's make some confetti. And I am going to use some gold here, or yellow. This is the easy stuff. You just go in, you do a little bitty brush press to your paper, and it looks like confetti. Boop, boop, just like that. And then some swirlies. And it looks like you know what you're doing. Fake it till you make it, friends. It's how I live my life. I just heard my daughter quote Goodfellas, and she's never seen that movie. I blame my husband. Okay, what two names were they again? I'm not even sure. Was it a person? Remind me. I don't even remember what I don't know what the heck I say most of the time. Remember I mentioned the perimenopause thing? What did I say, Christy? I don't even know. All right, let's do some blue too. I'm definitely going to use some blue. We'll do some blue spiral boop-a-doops. And then I was thinking about doing, maybe I could just do it down here. Do I want to give this kitty a table to sit on? And then have like the hanging 2026 underneath it? Let me see where my brushes went, because I moved them and now I'm like, where did they go? Lives. Oh, the Facebook lives I've watched. Yes. Andrea Garvey is the one I believe I mentioned. Andrea Garvey is a watercolor acrylic artist who is just the most lovely person in the world. When I first started, I followed a lot of her lives, and I wasn't, I did not imagine I would ever be doing my own, that's for sure. Okay, so down here, I'm going to just do a real quick, maybe do it in the gold. Let's do it in the yellow. We'll do a couple. So we're going to just do a little square like that, and another little square in the gold like that, and then the blue like that, and then this blue. This is the ultramarine original. This ultramarine is weird because it's like not as ultramarine as I'm used to, but we're going to do that. And when that dries, I'm going to connect it and write 2020 over it. I'm also going to go back into this bottle and give it a label. So something to know about white watercolor is that it is super transparent, and you're just not going to see a whole lot of difference when you use it over the top of something. You can use it as a mixer. So even if I move this over here, do you guys see how light that label is? So you can let it dry that way and just layer it over again. Or you could use this. This is the bleed proof white I think I mentioned earlier. It's wonderful. You can just go in with your brush. This is actually in pretty rough shape. I left the top off of it, but I want to show you the difference. You already see it, right? It's just so much more opaque versus the regular. You have a lot more liberty to cover up mistakes. It can be a little chunky though, so just make sure you don't leave the top open like I do. I don't remember the other one. I don't know if I mentioned another one. Maybe I did. Christy Rice is great. I'm sure a lot of you know her. She has her own watercolor supplies. Andrea does not. I'm going to put a little bit of white up here and a little bit of white down the center. I'm going to move some of that around, but I did want to put a little bit in here into this little kitty's face just to lighten him up a little bit around those cheeks. And I'm just going to blend that out down in a little bit. Not too much though. And up in a little bit. And I might even use some acrylic marker over the top of that as well. Okay. Good enough, I guess. I'm going to go back over this one more time to bring that white label back. I might make that actually a little bit bigger. Yeah, that feels a little bit better. Okay. I'm going to hit this whole thing with heat, and then I might go over it with one more layer of watercolor in a few spots, and then we're going to use some mixed media over the top. So it starts to kind of give off this vibe where you see a lot of like different things happening on the page. We're going to do a little bit of that. I'll show you what that looks like for me. It'll also start to bring some personality, or my personality, back to the piece. I watched both Pizzazz Studio Art live, loved it, but very Christian, and Tracy W. Oh. Hi, Karen. Happy New Year's from Alaska. Happy New Year's from Buffalo, Karen. Have an amazing night. Day. It's really early for you. This is a Chandler tool heat gun, by the way. I got mine on Amazon years ago, like when I first started, and it's still going, which is better than my dishwasher. My dishwasher is terrible. I've replaced my dishwasher. I want to say we bought 2 dishwashers in the last 5 years. That's ridiculous. 2. One of them was because we had just moved into the house, and the one that we thought was going to be good when we moved in was not. And then like 3 years later, our other one went to crap. Oh, so annoying. Okay. So I'm going to go back over this in a couple more layers. Not too much though, because I really want to start mixed mediaing Mixed media-ing is not a real word, but I like to use not real words. It's more fun that way. All right, so I'm going to go back in with mixed media one more time, or the bleed proof white one more time. Like that. You could also do this part with acrylic marker if that's what you have. And then let's go over the kitty one more time. We're going to just add a few more brush strokes to this little guy or girl. And we're going to make it look a little bit more, what's the word? Oh, and I did want that to be a bit more obvious. Some of the shadow work in the foot that's tucked. So I'm just going to go around like this. Like that. Just sharpening up some of that. I'm going to put some more black underneath on the bottom. And then definitely some more down in here. I want to do it under the neck, where the neck is. And if you aren't fond of all of these brush stroke kind of looks, you can always blend it out a little bit more. Go right in here. This is also an opportunity for you to add some like fluffy fur bits. So if you wanted to like go in and make it a little bit more long-haired, you could do that in here as well. I'm going to go in under the eye and near the nose. Oop, I just went a little bit too far. I'm going to go under the hat. Remember, this will darken lighter, but this definitely gives it a bit more depth when you go in again. Like in here, I'm going to add a little bit more fluffs. And then just a few lighter dry brush strokes, which is basically when your brush is not super wet anymore and it leaves spots underneath the painting. Yes, you can, Christy. You absolutely can. That's why it's watercolor. It absolutely can be reactivated once you add water to it. It is a bit more chunky, and what I mean by that is it's got more of a gouache quality to it, and gouache is like a very creamy watercolor, but gouache is sold in acrylic and also sold in watercolor form. So if you get a gouache acrylic, it's not going to reactivate. If you get a gouache watercolor, it will reactivate. But this is definitely, it's just a super concentrated, but it can dry almost plasticky if you don't add enough water to it. So just be mindful of that. It doesn't really bother me that much, but I know for some people they notice a difference in their art. Like, even if you look at this like a little bit more up close, you can kind of see those brush strokes. I like it that way. It doesn't bother me. I'm probably going to go in again over those hairs because I like how that looks. It kind of gives this like, bit like even in here and up in here, it kind of gives some furry little brush strokes. Like I'm going to do a little bit more up in here. In the nose. And if I wanted to give like white on the ears, I don't mind that. I think it looks cool. But it's not for everybody. My art is not for everybody, and your art is not for everybody. Everybody's got their own aesthetic and their own style. So you'll know for you if you like it or not. I'm going to put a little bit on the chin too. Like I like how it looks puffed now. Like it looks like really cute, right? It does. It gives it dimension. Okay. Let's go into this a little bit. I don't think I'm going to do any more on the kitty right now. I'll go back in with some watercolor pencil in a little bit. I'm going to add a bit more dimension and interest to these paintings with just some more paint on top of what I already did. And this is just like, don't confuse watercolor with like the moment that you go down with your color and you're like, look how gorgeous that is. Well, yeah, watercolor looks amazing in your first go around, but it dries dull. So it's important to know that as you're playing, that you generally are going to almost always need a second layer over something. Like, you see what I'm doing right now? I'm going over some of the yellow brush strokes that I had with another color. It's just more interesting. It creates contrast. Like this yellow that I have over here, you can barely see it. And that's because watercolor goes in dry. And it's also a very light color. So I'm going to add some extra yellow in there and maybe some yellow up in here to make sure there's a bit of yellow everywhere. But just know that you need to go in at least a couple of times. At least I do. I'm going to come back into this guy. Like, look how faded that looks right now. I'm going to build up some of that faded by adding another layer. I'm not going to repaint the whole thing, but I am going to go in and create depth by picking one side to add a little bit more color, like that. And now you have this open space on the back end. I'm going to do the same thing on this bottle. Where the label is, should be dry. I'm going to add a little bit more green, like it's a shadow. Same down here. I'm just going to build this up like that. And then now it looks a little bit more interesting. Okay. And then I'm going to hit this with heat, and then we're going to go in with watercolor pencil next. That's the plan anyway. And then don't forget, I'm definitely going to use some sparkle because it's New Year's. So all this little confetti that you see everywhere, we're going to zhuzh that up. Hello, Marcella. Or Marcella. I don't know if that's pronounced as a CH sound or just an S sound. Welcome to anyone who just joined. My name is Christine, and I like to work with watercolor mostly, but I do like to use mixed media in my art. I like the dimension that it creates. I also like that it's able to help me cover up the mess ups and the missteps that sometimes I have with watercolor. Because if I have one complaint about watercolor, it's that it is often easy to see mess ups and missteps in watercolor. Okay, so I think right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the eye with a lighter color. So I'm going to choose this one. Again, I'm using watercolor pencils. Marcella, you got it. And I'm going to use them because I have a bit more control with watercolor pencils. I also just like them. These are Art Pop watercolor pencils. So now he's got green little eyes. Happy New Year's, Lynn. Thanks for coming. I'm also going to go into this bottle with that same color. I do not outline everything. I outline little bits and pieces of everything I illustrate and design. So like right here, I'm going to shadow this in a little bit. And then over here, I'm going to outline this part a little bit. Generally, I hit the corners and the curves. Like in here, I might leave that alone. Down here, I use the watercolor pencil to add shadow. Right in there. And then if I want to, I can go in with a brush and blend that out even more. Let's see. I'm going to add a little bit more. Let's add a little bit of yellow to those eyes. Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Marcella. Thank you so much. One of the things I like about pencil is it's so blendable. I also just like the texture a lot. And the control that I get too. I feel much more controlled when I have it. So like right here, I accidentally colored a little bit over that eye. So I'm gonna go back over it again, like that. And these Art Pop watercolor pencils, I have been so super fond of. They're pretty heavily pigmented. Not all watercolor pencils come across as very pigmented. Some of them can be very difficult to see. They're very light, but these ones have been great. And then if you ever are interested in the Super Luxe one, the luxury ones that I got as a gift from someone years ago, and they're from Karst. You've probably seen them in my watercolor videos because I just got these Art Pop recently. And Art Pop is a subdivision art supply company from Blick. So if you're interested, you can buy them online or go to your nearest Blick. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back into this kitty. I'm using my black watercolor pencil, and I'm just going to bring out all of the edges and bits. And if I want to, I'm going to add little extra lines of fur along the edges like this. And it does not have to be super perfect here. Feel free to have a few stragglers. And then in here, I'm going to go in and scribble doodle because I want this to be much darker than what's going on up here. Same thing in here, a little bit of scribble doodles underneath the black face. And then you can kind of see where the fur is kind of popping out here a little bit. And I'm going to put a little bit up here on the top of the ears. And I'm going to go down in here and scribble doodle a little bit. And if you don't like the scribble look, then you just go right back in with your watercolor brush and you spread that around. Okay. And then what I want to do next is, let's see, I'm going to go into the eye one more time with a darker green. And I'm just going to pick one side just to make it look a little bit more interesting, like something else is happening there. Okay. And then I'm going to go into the nose with a bit of dark, like a pink, kind of like underneath here, like that. That's a little bit darker than I wanted, so I'll go back in with a light pink, actually a peach, over the top. And again, if it's looking too sketchy, you can always go in and blend it out. Adding little nostrils to the bottom of that nose. And then I'm going to go ahead, actually I'm going to sharpen this. I prefer a very sharp pencil when I'm working. Okay. I'm going to go under the nose and just do the littlest bit of an outline. I'm going to go under here very lightly. You don't need to outline everything. I'm going to re-outline some of the bits and pieces of this kitty that I initially drew. Like even this hand here. And down here, a little bit of a scribble doodle. Down here, the area where I'm tucking that little kitty paw. Right in here, you're starting to see some of this kitty come together. And then always kind of go back, like, did I do what I did in another spot? Like if I put scribblies up here for the fur, I should probably be putting them in a lot of different places. Like that. And then if you want, you can always go into the hair with these. Use little mark making bits. You don't have to do it everywhere. Do it in enough places, evenly spread out, balanced, that it feels like everything is intentional, even if it's not. And then we're going to give this guy white, what do you call it? White whiskers. And we're going to give him white highlights too in the eyes. I'm going to go in here and add some of his little whisker spots. And again, we're going with whimsical. We're not going with perfectionism. I'm going to use this black pencil a lot. I'm going to take a break on the black pencil for a minute though. I'm going to go in and add some more detail with other colors. And then I think I'll put some other sparklies in there. I'm going to use this to sharpen up some of these guys here. I do also like adding things where there's empty space. It's kind of like adding negative space to a piece. And adding it to different colors too also can be fun. I don't know why, it just is. All right, let's go into this. And this is just that little like hangy tab thing, and then you just write in the numbers. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of weight to one side. Like that. And then if you want to color that in, you certainly can. So I'm just going to go in like this. And then that looks pretty cool. And then I'm going to go in here and outline this a little bit. Lots of black watercolor pencil in my art, for sure. And I think the reason I use it more than I use, let's say, regular pencil is because it's more pronounced. It's a stronger pigment. I also really like it because I can blend it out if I don't like it, and it won't like take over a crazy amount of space. Now the hat. I don't want to forget. Actually, I'm going to go in with that dark blue on that hat. And then I can't wait to show you what I do with the wine bottle. Because you know how they have like the fancy handwriting? My handwriting is not fancy. My handwriting is the opposite of fancy. So I'll show you in a minute what I do. I'll just tell you. I fake cursive some sort of logo on on the bottle. So like, for instance, I'm going to take my pencil. I'm going to sharpen it real thin tip. And then I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to do some like wildly big thing and then just wiggle scribble. Make it look like it's some weird name. And then in tinier lettering, put something underneath it. And then it looks like it's some fancy wine bottle. Isn't that weird? It's weird, but I love it. I don't know why I love it, but I do. I'm going to come back up here and add a little bit more depth to that. Okay. Maybe a little bit over here. Okay. Sorry. I was just looking at it. It was bothering me. All right. I'm going to go in here as well. Why did I just do? I think that's what I wanted to do. This is honestly my favorite part, is going in at the end, because it feels a bit mindless. It doesn't require as much work from me to go in like this. Definitely in here. Like that. I'm so glad. I'm so happy you guys are here. Okay, let me go back into the eyes. I'm going to add a little bitty bit of highlight. Now, again, you could do this with acrylic marker. You could do it with, I don't find that watercolor pencil works as well. Honestly, I don't find that most pencil works very well in putting in the highlight that I want. So I do tend to use, I'm gonna pull this off here. I do tend to use a detail brush, probably about this size, and go in and add the teeniest, tiniest little highlight. That. And then I always like to add a little teeny tiny little sidebar. Like that. And it just looks a little bit more interesting to me when I do that. All right. Do I want to put white anywhere else? Oh, yes, I did. I almost forgot. We are going to do the whiskers in white. Like that. And then over here. I have a few more over here too. Like that. We're definitely going to do the eyebrows in white. It's the details, guys. It's the details that bring it all together. And it's starting to feel like it's coming together. All right, let's sparkle this bad boy up. All right, so these are the pens. This was a luxury purchase, guys. I got these shimmery glitter pens. I'll zoom this out. From a company called ZSCM. And they are the best glitter pens I've ever worked with in my life. They're amazing. You can get them in 12-pack. I have a 72. Because again, I don't know how to not overdo it when it comes to art supplies. So what I'm going to do with this is, you can see I love this one so much. I'm going to go in here and just add a little bit of sparkle to all the things. You can use your finger to blend it out. Oh, I'm too far away. Too far away, right? Aren't the whiskers so cute? Oh, they look so good. I'm just going to go into certain spots here and just add a little bit of sparkle. Boop. And over here for sure. And definitely in here. And I'm definitely going into this hat and adding the gold sparkle in the hat too. I'll add blue sparkle in it as well, but the gold feels a little bit more unexpected. And then in here, I might do some stars. Teacher stars all the way. Like that. And then a little bit of a stripe down there. And then it starts to feel a little bit more intentional. Do I need gold anywhere else? Yes. Right there. And if you really want, you could add a little bit of gold to the eye. And then let's get some blue shimmer. Use this one. Color in some of your confetti. Add it to your horn. Scribble in some of the areas where you doodled. Definitely put it in the 2026 and blend a little bit. And then I'm gonna go in green just for the bottle. And I just scribbled there, and then I blended out a little bit with my finger. And blend. If you don't mind getting your fingers dirty, of course. And blend. And then I think it's done, guys. Actually, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to go in over the nose one more time with a little bit of this peach. I'm going to add a little bit of this peach to the top of the cheeks and the nose. And the hairs, just a little bit. I just like the contrast. And look at how cute this turned out. Oh, I'm so happy. How adorable. Seriously. So cute. I'm going to actually go in the ears. One more time. That same peachy color. And friends, it's done. Done, done, done. Look how cute. And Happy New Year's, everyone. Thanks, Marcella. I hope you guys have a wonderful New Year's. I will try it. Do you guys see yourselves wanting to come to my lives? Like, I'm guessing yes. Like, we've had a good turnout today. Pretty happy with it. Again, this was my first time, so I'm happy to be here. But maybe like once a month, a plan here or there. And then just so you guys know, I am going to start curating my tutorials on Patreon. So that will be starting soon. You can keep an eye out for that. And basically it'll just be like, it'll be very tutorial style. It'll be intentional, less spontaneous and more intentional over there, that's for sure. But just keep an eye out. I'll definitely be posting that soon. And yeah, so for 2026, I definitely want to be more intentional. I want to be more accessible over here on Facebook because you guys have been such a great crowd and have been so supportive, and I really appreciate all of you so much. So you would? Okay, so maybe I'll do like one here a month, and I'll do one over on TikTok a month. And then I'm actually thinking of maybe taking those, no, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm going to keep that. I honestly don't know what I'm thinking yet, but definitely keep an eye out for more intentional tutorials, more visits over here for sure. And I love you guys. Thanks for hanging, and I hopefully will see you soon. Happy New Year, everybody.